Welcome to The First Mile, an immersive travel podcast hosted by Ash, Bhardwaj and Pip Stewart. Now, Pip isn't here with me today, but instead I have another fabulous woman in the shape of Libby Zietsman-Brodie. Libby is a wine consultant. We'll be coming on to that in a minute. And fortunately, the travel is certainly covered today because we are going to be exploring wine. And we're going to explore travel through the lens of Kiwi wine.
It's the best way to explore any culture or country, I think.
So, Libby, can you tell me what exactly a wine consultant is?
Certainly. Okay, so I'm a wine consultant. I'm an independent wine consultant. My company's Bacchus and Brodie. And essentially, I work in a number of different ways. But essentially, I help people pick the right wines for them. Your tongue is not the same as my tongue. Your palate is not the same as my palate. So I help people pick the right wines for their dinner parties, for events that they're having. I help events companies as well with things like hampers. And I also consult with actual wine companies, distributors and exporters and stuff to help market their wines effectively and reach the right audiences.
Now, you and I have known each other for quite a long time, Libby.
We have. I first met you in your underpants doing near naked lunges in my living room, if I recall, in the morning.
That was not a time that we were drinking a lot of sophisticated wine.
No. So I think it was Jaeger bombs back then.
They were quite sophisticated for our drinking palate at that time.
It's very true. It's very true. They were cheap. They weren't cheap, to be fair, as an option.
They weren't. And how did you go from greeting naked men lunging in your living room to being a wine consultant?
On a daily basis. So I was, I am a theatre and film producer, but with lockdown and everything, I retrained. I took to drink professionally.
Like all of us did.
All of us did, but I made a career out of it. So I trained with the WSET, which is the Wine and Spirits Education Trust, and I completed their level 3 with distinction. That's theory and blind tasting. Distinction, I know. Humble, so this # humble brag.
Wine drinkers school.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, it was 9 a.m. and you turn up to a row of wines. That was quite, to taste. But you do spit professionally, unfortunately. I mean, there were a couple of ones I have to say I didn't because they were just too good, but you tend to spit. But essentially, I now work, I like to see myself as a wine translator because wine can be seen as this quite snobby or mysterious, and it is, deliberately confusing language is used all the time. But if you just know a little bit about it, it'll help you drink better.
And you have become quite passionate about the intersection of wine and travel, as have I. You write for City AM, a paper that I've written for as well.
I do. I look at us. I'm so journos.
City AM colleagues.
I am their wine columnist. So, but basically, we human beings are multi-sensory beings. So if you go and travel anywhere, you've got what you're seeing and what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're tasting. It's all making up part of the culture and country that you're visiting, your sense of place, essentially. And there is nothing, I won't slam the table too much, but there is nothing like wine that gives you a sense of place. It grows from the ground. It's affected by the ground, the climate, the seasons, like how that very year has treated it. And it's made by a people for that area. So they say what grows together goes together if you're thinking of pairing wine and food. And so when you're drinking wine in the region, you're thinking of the food they're eating in that region. You're thinking of the climate they have in that region. There is no product that is as good as travel. If you can't travel by plane, travel by palate.
Well, I absolutely have to agree. And I've done a lot of great press trips that have involved drinking. Chile, California, Oregon, Washington State, all down that west coast of America.
Amazing. Then
France, been to the Champagne region and a couple of others. Carver, going to the Penedès region. Georgia, and of course, New Zealand.
Woohoo!
Now, New Zealand's great because New Zealand is where I first fell in love or started to learn about wine. So a few years before I was naked in your living room, I lived in New Zealand and was running a bar in central Otago, which I believe we're going to be trying some wines from.
We are. We're going to be having one Sauvignon Blanc from there and 2 Pinot Noirs. So the 2 grapes we're really trying today are the key grapes, really, the best known from New Zealand, which are Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir. And they're both varietals that were brought over from France. So Sauvignon Blanc is obviously known as in France very well. Sancerre, Pouilly Fumé is one of the grapes of White Bordeaux.
So those are not. So this really confuses me in France. So Because I learned about wine in New Zealand, the first thing you hear is the grape, and then you learn the region, and then you learn the vineyard. So it's like Pinot Noir, Central Otago, Love Block, or Sauvignon Blanc.
Wherever this one is.
Amisfield of Central Otago as well. But with French wines, it's just the name of the region, like Bordeaux, Burgundy, Puy-Fumé, Sancerre. And then you're meant to I thought they were all different grapes.
No, you're meant to just memorise. The sort of old traditional way of doing things and the new world way of doing things are very different. If you see a grape name, it's generally a New World wine. Unless it's sort of Germany, actually. Germany, you get Riesling on them quite a lot. But yeah, in France, definitely it's sort of done by region. They expect you to know.
So you'd never see like Puy-Fumé labelled as a Sauvignon Blanc. It's like,
no.
if you need it labelled as a Sauvignon Blanc, you should not be drinking Puy-Fumé.
I'm not sure of that, but it's definitely the way it's done.
Yeah.
And I mean, you might find French wines labelled as Sauvignon Blanc, but they're more often known as things like Sancerre, Puy-Fumé, Chablis, which is obviously a Chardonnay.
Obviously.
I'm just saying it's not a Sauvignon Blanc. But Sauvignon Blanc is, I think a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is basically a gateway wine. Everyone's had a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, particularly from the Marlborough region, where I think 3 of the ones we're trying today are from. It's so well known. And it's such a new region for wine, relatively speaking, New Zealand. It's huge industry. We were having a chat before this, and 30 years ago, there were under 100 wineries, and now there's over 700.
Wow, that is a growth industry.
Yeah, I mean, it is booming.
And the other reason why I think it is a great way for us to explore New Zealand today is we can talk about the landscape, the climate, the viticulture, the local culture, the wine culture, the Kiwi culture, and how all of that affects the way they make wine and therefore how the wine tastes. And also it can be an interesting comparison to France, where we know wines more traditionally. So I'd think about what is different about New Zealand that makes the wine taste different.
Absolutely. Should we
Yeah, well, let's start. You have to tell me
right.
The drinking wine method.
Drinking wine method.
Necking.
The tasting wine method. Okay, right. So firstly, you should always pour. I think I started.
Am I starting with this one? Am I?
Yep, the one on your far left.
Yep.
So that one, which was the one we started with? Oh, it's the Villa Maria. Now, Villa Maria, it's right far left over there. Yep. So basically, this is my Kiwi friends tell me this is like the absolute sort of standard. Go to the supermarket, you'll see tons of this.
Jacob's Creek.
So yeah, like a Jacob's Creek. I think this one's slightly nicer. I've tried the Villa Maria Riesling. I've not tried the Sauvignon Blanc, so I'm very curious about this. And this one's a reserve, which is meant to, actually has no meaning on a label, but actually has no meaning, but it's meant to mean the grapes that you've held back, so they're a bit nicer and a bit more special. So yeah, so basically when you pour a wine to taste, you pour it to the widest part of your glass.
Yeah.
These are actually tasting glasses
right.
that
so that's widest.
Yeah. So these are tasting glasses that we're using here from the WSET. They give it to you when you graduate. And so first you sort of look at it, check out the colour.
Quite pale.
It is quite pale. You get sort of colour,
Really
show you
pale.
things about aging, winemaking, things like that. You also want to be checking for faults, like if it's a conventional wine, there shouldn't be a haze. But obviously if it's unfined or unfiltered or a natural wine, there will be. So you want to look at that. So you see it. It's probably the least important thing because you can Google how it's made. And then you can...
Whoa.
Then you smell it.
I mean,
you swirl it. It's 4 S's. You see it, you swirl it. That's to get some oxygen into your wine. And that really helps release those flavours and aromas.
Well, I mean, that is pretty overwhelming. That is a strong smell.
Punch of gooseberry. That is a punch of gooseberry and passion fruit, right?
Passion fruit, that's the one that I'm smelling. That is a strong smell.
That is a gooseberry and passion fruit fist in your nose.
I mean, it's a bit of a punch to the face. It's like somebody has stuffed a fruit bowl up my nose.
Sauvignon Blanc is a really aromatic grape.
I don't drink it with my nose though.
You don't try not to drink it with you could give it a go. I bet you've done worse. But go. Oh my god, you did it. He snorted it. So the first wine tasting, I was not a very good teacher. He just snorted the wine. That's amazing. How was it? How did it taste through your nose?
I can really smell grass. I can really smell grass now.
Grass is another Sauvignon Blanc. It's an aromatic variety.
Like grass that's been rained on.
But different regions bring out different things. So if you've got a cool climate, like France, for instance, like a Sancerre, you generally have more minerality, more of that sort of whetstone and grass. Somewhere like New Zealand, because it's got this bright sunshine. So Marlborough, and you'll know this from having travelled there, has a high rate of sunshine.
So that was me just slurping some wine.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't even gone into stepping. So you've sniffed it, and haven't you just? Swirled it, sniffed it, and then you sip it. And what you meant to do is you meant to hold a little bit of wine on the pool of your tongue, and then just like that. Yeah, beautiful. This is a great. So if you weren't listening to this podcast, you really should be seeing his face right now. You look like a dying lizard. And then basically,
I have been called that before.
Sort of suck some air over the top of it and swirl it around your mouth. Now that's getting even more oxygen, and it's slightly warming the wine in your palate, and that's going to bring even more flavors. But when you're thinking about what you're smelling, and then when you taste it, you think about those flavors and you think, am I getting even more stuff going on here?
Hay's
a great one. Hey,
I've got
but
hay.
sort of sun-baked hay, sun-warmed hay.
Sun-warmed hay.
It's actually really good. It's got
Peach?
It's quite yeah, there's some stone fruit in there as well.
Fruit.
It has that feeling of
That's
residual
the
sweetness.
only wine people use.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. So stone fruit, apricots. You sort of go through but this is a ripe flavored Sauvignon Blanc, I think, and that comes a lot because of the Marlborough has the biggest, I think, sunshine hours in New Zealand. Most sunny days, I think.
I was unaware of that. So from my travels there, I'm just setting my clock.
It was
to make
rainy
sure
the whole damn time.
Well, I was in Marlborough, and it's a very pretty region. It's not as mountainous as a bit further south. Like, it's sort of quite nice, mellow valleys. And the Marlborough Sound is a region where you have lots of inlets. Mm-hmm. So it's the Marlborough Sound. So you've got areas coming in off the sea.
It's been many years since I've been, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
So think about like the Norwegian fjords, but less harsh, lower, and gently rolling hills instead of cliffs. But you've got the sea coming in. So I guess France doesn't have that because it's a continent, whereas New Zealand's an island, getting battered by the winds coming across the Tasman Sea. So you must have a very different climate in New Zealand to France.
Well, yeah, very different climate, some similar soils, and some areas, because it's such a diverse country, as you know. So it's hard to group New Zealand all together in climate-wise and soils-wise. But weather-wise, I mean, Marlborough has long sunny days, has quite cold evenings. That's really good for maintaining acidity. So if you do an acid test with your wine, it's after you swallow your wine, close your mouth and tip your head forward, and it's however much you drool.
I'm drooling quite a lot.
It's quite acidity, and you'll get that because it's really ripening in the sun. I've got a spittoon here if you'd like to drool into it. Just between our legs. Yes, you've got that sort of beautiful ripe fruit flavors from the sunshine, but then it cools right down and it maintains that acidity. That makes generally quite good wines.
So this is showing how the landscape of the region makes it very different to the same grape that you'd find in France.
Yeah.
Take it to New Zealand, and it's very different down there.
Totally different. And it was actually the French settlers who brought the vines over in the 1800s.
Really?
Yeah, the French. That's why you've got sort of like, well, actually, it's the Pinot Noir from Burgundy. Because also, if you drink Burgundy, French Burgundy, that's Pinot Noir.
Really?
Yeah.
Not another grape.
So that's the
Right.
grape. But the first established winery was in Hawke's Bay in 1865, and then everything historically just went kind of quiet until really recently. And essentially that was because of World War II, because importing wines, they raised all the taxes, I think, on it, or the duties. So and then it was
They just started to make their own.
They started to sort of produce better, and then the 1960s was the first time they allowed wine in restaurants. So really recent.
Yeah, so New Zealand was it was one of those countries which was almost under prohibition. So there are a lot of dry counties in New Zealand until not long ago. So there was a lot of bootlegging.
Wasn't going travelling there then.
Yeah, nor I. I mean, I certainly, they've really overthrown that particular phase of their cultural life, I think.
Yeah, I think it's because they've probably found out they just did it so damn well. I think if you find out you're doing something really, really well, and the rest of the world likes it.
They do stuff quite well, the Kiwis. They take up rugby, they're better than the entire world. Cricket, they're very good. Sailing, they're very good. Coffee, really good coffee in New Zealand. Wine. They've got this real can-do attitude, but they also become very good and focused at things. So the reason the All Blacks became so good was they developed a sort of an elite academy of coaches rather than elite academy of players, which a lot of other places did. They really developed their coaches. So you almost had an All Blacks coach in every team around the country. And I think they take a similar attitude to everything they do, including wine.
Oh, well, that makes perfect sense, and why they're doing it so darn well. I have to say, it's only in the 80s and 90s that export happened
Really?
Yeah, really. I mean, 1970s they started upping their game with the winemaking. 80s, 90s they started exporting it, and that's when it all went mad. I'm jumping ahead here.
Well, I think in the 70s as well, the other thing that happened is you had a lot of Kiwis who'd spent their year abroad in Europe, in France, in Italy, and they brought back some of those ideas and that winemaking, or they went and effectively apprenticed to winemakers over there and then came home to New Zealand and took that wine skill with them. I mean, you see it a lot we've got lots of Kiwi mates or Aussie mates who come over and work here for a couple of years and then move back home and take those skills with them, whatever industry it is they've worked in. And I think a lot of that had a big impact on the Kiwi wine industry.
I would agree. Too. I think the world getting smaller has actually helped a lot of countries establish their winemaking process. I think places like India, where there was no winemaking culture, and now there is.
They make wine in India?
Yeah. In fact, there's a amazing master of wine. The only master of wine in India is a woman, which makes her literally 1 in a billion.
Wow.
I follow her on Instagram. But anyway, aside from, but there are loads of countries that are bringing back winemaking techniques from, the countries that have been doing it for a while. And obviously the France had a massive impact on New Zealand's winemaking, but it's so distinctive. This would never be, you would never go, oh yes, this is a French Sancerre. Yes. This is such a distinctive New Zealand grape style.
Even I could have told you that.
Even you, I mean, absolutely. And so can we go on to the next one? I would love to try.
Yeah, let's move on to the next.
So the next one I'm really excited about, Bacchus, I think it's called, Bacchus,
right.
2019. This is actually the first vineyard in the region to actually achieve sustainable status.
Smells so
totally different.
So I'm guessing.
Oh wow!
Can I tell you the smells I know?
Yeah, tell me.
There's sort of earthiness, brioche, a bit of a brioche smell there.
It's absolutely beautiful. No, this is really gorgeous. I've got quite a lot of gunflint going on there.
Gunflint, definitely. It smells like the rocks that I used to fall over on in New Zealand.
That's such an amazing. That right there, folks, is linking travel to wine. Your actual experiences, because I think no, it's true because wine, unlike anything else, I realize I'm passionate about wine, but unlike anything else, it links to your mind and your memories. Because that's why people, when they taste the wine, will have completely different associations because of the neuro pathways that are going on. So when you smell something or taste something, and it takes you right back to a family holiday or Christmas or falling over on rocks when you're traveling. Yeah. That's a real thing that wine can do. That is why they say that wine is this magical thing, really, that it involves your memories, it involves present culture, past culture, experiences. There's nothing like breaking bread with friends, with a glass of wine. It's biblical.
Or breaking your knees.
Or breaking your knees on rocks. There's nothing like it. And
that's amazing.
Isn't it? That smells so different and so good. And
this is from which part of New Zealand did you say?
I can't. My pronunciation is always terrible. It's Marlborough, but it's Wairau Valley. Wairau Valley. So it's Awatere and Wairau, the two valleys really in Marlborough that are main regions for winemaking. So the previous one for the Maria, they buy their grapes from, or they have their grapes, about 20% is their own vineyard, the rest of it they buy from regions of the North Island. This one is from Wairau, and the next one we're trying is Awatere.
That one's that Babbage one is amazing. That is a wine that I would.
I was really excited about trying this. Decanter, who I love, they have a great judging system, gave this 91 points, which you might not really care about point system, and I agree, it's totally up to your own preferences, but that's an outstanding wine, and this really is. It's a freaking bargain for under 13 quid from Waitrose, I have to say.
That is mega. Where's the bottle?
It's got it on it there.
It's on
the back.
Babbage Organic. There we go.
Absolutely
good
delicious.
wine.
So it's still got this tropical fruit notes. You can still get, if you right at the back there, you've still got that gooseberry, passion fruit, but it's just that there's a more minerality, sort of gunflinty stone fruit going on.
When I smell the Villa Maria afterwards, it smells just like fruit juice in comparison. Like it's so strong, the fruity flavour.
But that's the thing, you've got sort of the same grape made in the same country, and they have completely different...
In the same region?
Yeah. Well, yeah, close enough. So should we crack on to the third one? Just compare it as we're talking. Yeah. So the third one is a winery I know very well, because I'm really big on anyone who follows me on Instagram. I'm at a little sip of me time with underscores, just saying.
Very good.
Thanks. Little plug there.
Good plug.
Thank you. You'd appreciate it. But I'm very big on sustainable wine. Sustainable wine is very important to me. And Yellen's is a carbon neutral carbon neutral certified winery. They really care about the environment. They really care about their impact on the environment. They use solar power, wind power. I've tried their wines before.
So it's a very hot topic in New Zealand at the moment, generally, actually,
they
sustainability
are driving
and farming.
Sustainability.
Well, also, there's been massive problems in farming over the last 20 years with the dairy industry in particular, and they're really trying to shift that. And there's been a lot of stuff about it in the politics of the country over the last couple of years, and it's great to see that one of their best-known exports is really starting to use that as a marketing point.
Yeah, I think the more people... The thing is, sustainability is only ever going to be consumer-driven.
Yeah.
And I think actually as people who travel, obviously there's a travel podcast, people who love to travel, we love the world. We love to see the world, and we want to swim in seas that are plastic free, and we want to travel to beautiful places that are kept that way. Sorry.
I sniffed it again.
Did you sniff it again? I'm just so sweaty right now. It's so hot. Let's drink some more wine. Okay, so
I'm getting a sort of green pepper.
Are you?
Yeah.
Capsicum is an absolute... You're so good at this. Look at you. Your grass, your passion fruit. Look at you. Natural. You're very natural. Yeah, so this is... I'm getting lots of like apple and herbs, some minerals. Okay. You know what's different about this one? It's a salinity. You've got that slight saltiness.
Yeah.
And it's because our terre, sorry again for my pronunciation, is, if it's incorrect, it's very close to the sea. They get the sea breezes coming in.
Salt goes into the grape.
Yeah, people, I mean, there is dispute on this. I will say that, I must say this actually, everything in wine, there is a caveat, everything there's an exception, and everything there is someone with a different opinion. That is it is definite personal preference. But I swear that when you have wines from a coastal region, like a Picpoul or an Albarino, or or this one, and that is a commonly held belief. You can taste that salt from the sea breezes in the vines, and that makes. I mean, again, if you go back to that first one, it's just completely different. So we're really traveling through the North Island at this moment. No,
it's the South Island. Marlborough's the South Island.
Oh well, that one. We're really travelling through an island, and I swear I've only had 3 glasses.
It's the top of the South Island.
But it's...
Wow, it's so different. So 3 identical grapes, all from... So as in, it's all Sauvignon Blancs.
Yeah.
One's from the Awatere Valley. One's from Central... Oh, we've not had the Central Sauvignon.
No, we haven't tried this out Central. So I'm personally going to tip out that first Villa Marie.
Okay.
And...
Yeah, you can definitely smell the Villa Maria. It's just so fruity.
It's so aromatic, and Sauvignon Blanc is an aromatic grape. Some water there if you like. I really don't want to pour it all over your equipment, but
that's okay.
By that I meant radio equipment. Nothing else. Nothing else, readers, listeners.
Classic Libby Zietsman-Brodie there.
Yeah, classic me with the sexual innuendo. All right, so can you? How do I one-handed crack this open? Again, talking about the bottle.
I'll hold the bottle. You do the twist.
I'll do the twist.
That's good.
Twisting the cap. Hey. All right. So this is really exciting because this is from Otago, which you know very, very well.
That was why I ran the bar, and Otago is like a rocky, dry, high part of the country. It really runs onto the southern Alps. It's where the goldfields were. The places most people know about from Otago are Wanaka and Queenstown, which is the adventure tourism capital of New Zealand. And
oh my gosh.
How is it?
It smells completely different again. Like this is a real range of...
Well, I can definitely smell something slightly fruity though.
It's definitely fruitiness there, but I'm just saying like this really just shows you the difference. Here we are trying literally back to back 4 of the same grape. People go, oh yeah, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. And that's the end of.
Completely different.
And actually, it's a whole experience. And the more you taste wine, is about practice, obviously. But the more you taste wine, the more excited you will get about all these differences. Step into alcoholism with me.
Well, that is great. I apologise for all you listeners who every now and again just hear us slurping. I don't know if that's a very pleasant audio experience for you. I think you make it sound a lot more like a tweeting bird.
Do I? It's a tweeting bird style.
Yeah.
I mean, that is... The acidity on that is huge. It's very drooly. So, I am right, this is the South Island.
So Otago, so it's the same island as Marlborough. So New Zealand has 2 islands, the North Island and the South Island.
Check I've got the right island.
Yeah, and Marlborough's at the top of the South Island, and that's the sort of inlets with the sounds where the sea comes quite far inland. And Otago, completely different. It's high, it's inland, it's dry, it's in the rain shadow of the Southern Alps, so doesn't get a lot of rain or snow. Very, very cold in winter, very hot in summer.
I mean, what was amazing to me is that I really only know Otago for its Pinot Noir. Whereas, in fact, I think I've got here on my notes, because I'm a nerd, that there's 1,555 hectares of wine, of which only 39 are for Sauvignon Blanc.
So when I lived there and was getting wine for the wine bar I worked in, I went around Bannockburn, Cromwell, the Carroll Gorge. Those are the regions of Otago. And I don't remember them growing any Sauvignon Blanc in that region. When I was there, I mean, that was 2007. They had a lot of Pinot Noir, a bit of Pinot Gris, I think.
Pinot Gris, yeah.
Pinot Gris. And maybe even some Riesling down there.
Well, originally, actually, the grapes that were mostly planted were, I think, Chenin Blanc and Müller-Thurgau. But then they got phylloxera, which is this terrible disease which attacks vines. They had to rip them all up and attach them to new rootstocks. And they actually took the opportunity, I think this was in the 70s or something, to basically plant more popular internationally Sauvignon Blanc. As you're good at this, what do you smell?
I definitely still smell some gooseberry and some stone fruit.
There's a candied something in there. Maybe
It's not a
like a boiled sweet, but it's not a sweet wine. This isn't a sweet wine, but there's a slightly candied peel or something edge to it going on there.
There isn't like a brioche or anything like that. There's a bit like a sort of, like the sweet flavour you get in croissants, but not brioche.
Yeah, so you're sort of like a buttery, toasty.
Yeah, I would never expect butter in a Sauvignon
sort of
Blanc.
a creamier. It's a fuller flavoured. I mean, I guess because of the drama that you were talking about Otago having, like it's got those freezing, snowy mountains. It's got summers of 35 degrees. It's a place of drama. Man, I want to go back.
Well, they did film Lord of the Rings in large parts of Otago.
They did not drink enough wine. Obviously, they actually got the ring where it had to be. So
They did.
If we'd had that job,
I don't think the ring would have been going anywhere.
We'd have just sat going, this wine is effing delicious.
But so how does that drama of that landscape compare to where Sauvignon Blanc is more traditionally from in France?
Okay, well, generally new world wines tend to get more heat and more sun. So when you have a grape that, if you prefer more linear styles of wine, grassy, flinty, minerally, people say whetstones. Who's licked a whetstone? Well, I've actually probably have at some point licked a whetstone. But people sort of say that those sorts of flavors are generally, they're cooler climates. Because they don't have the sun, the heat and the sun of sort of countries like New Zealand in hotter areas, or South Africa, or New World areas like that that have a lot of heat and sun. They ripen with sugar. Sugar converts to alcohol, and you get these ripe fruit flavors. And you get, because basically what makes a wine is yeast eats sugar and converts it into alcohol and carbon dioxide.
So colder, drier places
produce less ripe fruit and less sugar.
So that's specifically how the climate affects the flavour of the wine.
In general, of course, you could then have, for example, late harvest or botrytis, which is a particular type of rot, which is very popular in France and Hungary to make Tokai, which is a very well-known sweet wine. So again, there's loads of caveats once you get into the wine world. But in general, if you like your sort of mineral, cool, clean, you'll go for cooler areas, and New Zealand is such a varied area in itself. You can find that within New Zealand. You can find the cooler regions and the hotter regions, and you also know when wines are going to be a bit riper and fruitier. They're generally going to be the more mass-produced wines, the more commercial wines. People like a bit of sweetness in their wine. It is the gateway wine.
So Villa Maria, and I mean,
yeah.
I remember being a barman in the UK in the early 2000s, just as Sauvignon Blanc was starting to come in from New Zealand commercially on a big scale, and people loved it because of that, the
fruity
gooseberry,
sweetness.
the peachy.
But that's what gets people into it, and then they start going, oh, let me try a bit of gunflinty one. Oh, I want to try one, and then that has the sustainability as well. And this is Amersfield, right? So this actually won the Riedel, which is a wonderful glass make of wine. This won Organic Winery of the Year in 2020.
I really like that. My favourite of these so far has been the Babbage.
So that's definitely got that grippy minerality to it. This one here, Amersfield used to be a sheep station.
Well, nearly all of Otago is sheep station.
I need to go back to Otago, obviously.
Well, so when I was playing rugby in Wanaka,
Yeah.
so people go to Wanaka because it's an adventure town. You go skiing in the winter, play on the lake in the summer, next to Queenstown. I went and played rugby at the local club there. And all of the guys I was playing rugby with were local Kiwis, and most of them were sheep farmers. So they were incredibly strong, incredibly tough, and I just got absolutely battered. And terribly scary. So all around Wanaka was basically a trading station for sheep's wool and other agricultural produce. And so if you look up, you've just got these pretty barren, bleak hills. They're beautiful. They're not bleak in the way that, the Yorkshire Dales are, for example. They just have a really stark beauty to them. A lot of sheep running on them, and a lot of them have been converted to vineyards now with north-facing slopes.
Of course, because it completely and they are also probably harvested the opposite way around to us, because obviously their seasons are completely different.
Exactly.
It's important to think about this. In fact, I think quite a few of the wines we're trying are north-facing slopes, which are the better slopes when you're in New Zealand. Just like if you're in France, you kind of want southern slopes.
So the other thing that I've heard of is rethoxypyridine. Apparently
crikey.
that gives it some of the minerality. That's something that
The rethoxypyridine, you say?
Oh yes, indeed.
Yeah, there are actually loads of sort of chemical compound names that you have if you're a cork dork.
Cork dork. That is great. I love it.
There's so much science involved. I have to say, when I started learning about wine, I really just thought I was going to be happily getting sloshed and knowing which way was the correct way to pass the port. But it's basically science and geography. A lot of it is the actual study of it. But it's also about culture and travel and the people who make it. And here's something I think is very important, which is not about chemical compounds. So sorry, slightly segue here. But every bottle, even your not that expensive bottles that you might be getting, every bottle, there's a winemaker there who's dedicated years. I mean, it takes years, decades for that bottle of wine to be created. It takes a vine roughly 4 years from planting to be able to actually produce fruit. And that's a huge risk because you've got all the weather issues and bugs and pests and hail and everything else that goes on. So taking a huge, then you eventually get some fruit. Then you eventually try to, make some wine. But that takes a process while you harvest it, and you might take some risks. You might choose to age it for a while, ferment it different ways, age it. You're taking a risk, and you try the wine, and you might have completely balls it all up. But you don't know. The point is that every bottle of wine has taken years. So people just grabbing a wine and slugging it back like it's some plonk like we used to when you were naked lunging in my living room. That's actually not giving wine the respect I think that it's all due, because it's someone has actually given their life's work to creating this bottle.
And we're going to go into the Pinot Noir, which I understand is a particularly sensitive.
I'm going to check all of these.
One of the things I think is different about New Zealand to France is, so France is an old country. They like to keep things the way they are because they think that they've worked out the best way to do everything, whether it's their wine, their food, their language. They don't like it being played with or dabbled with. Whereas I guess in New Zealand, they can build on that. I'm just going to sip a bit more of this one before I chuck it.
No, go sip away. I was just, anyone can hear the splashing sounds. We're just cleaning our glasses out with some water and throwing it into a spittoon rather than down our necks.
Because otherwise we would be wasted.
We would be wasted, which we have done before.
Yes.
But and maybe that'll be a different. That'll be a different podcast.
I came round to Libby's house to. Remember when I came around with my now wife?
Yes.
To try wines for our wedding.
Yeah.
And she didn't. I got absolutely battered.
There was no lunging that night, was there?
No.
You fell asleep at the table.
Well,
we had to call you a cab.
What I was saying...
Sorry, you were saying something important.
Before I talked about the time that I got party girl wasted.
Yeah.
Was that...
That's a very sexist term, party girl wasted.
Party boy wasted.
When both of the girls were the ones that were fine and you were asleep at the table.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. So for New Zealand, they can build on that heritage of the wine that has been evolved for a particular climate, a particular region, very specifically, very traditionally, where the methodology is passed down through generations in France. They take it, move it to a new climate, and they can build on that knowledge and then experiment. And I think whenever I try wines in New Zealand, they're very experimental. I feel that they're always trying new stuff.
Well, I think that's the exciting thing about wine. It's always developing. There is a history and a culture there, but they're also trying new things, and they're having to develop because let's think about it. They've only been the last 30 years, as we were just saying, 700 plus vineyards suddenly appearing all over the place. They're trying new things. So you'll always get something different. Remember, every bottle you taste will taste slightly different to the previous bottle because of not only where it's come from and all that stuff, but like and what the climate was like when it was harvested and stuff, but also how it's been stored affects it, all that sort of stuff affects it. So it's all very different.
We're now moving back to Otago, but we're moving back to Otago for
Central
Pinot
Otago.
Noir.
Pinot Noir. So this is what Otago is really famous for, is Pinot Noir.
And this is the wine that in France is Burgundy wine. Is that right?
Yes. So actually, and this is the fun fact, isn't it? So basically, in the 1860s, there was a gold rush in Otago, and a gold miner planted some vines, and he ended up winning the gold medal. It was a French gold miner, planted some vines of Pinot Noir, and he ended up winning the gold medal in Sydney at the Wine Awards for his Burgundy. But of course, it's not. It can't be, well, I mean, it might have been allowed then. Now it's got a copyright sort of trademark label on it, but people thought it was Burgundy. He was winning awards for Burgundy because it was Pinot Noir, red Pinot Noir that he had planted and grown in Otago.
So they thought this wine was from France.
I think he called it Burgundy because back then Burgundy didn't have the trademark like it does now. But it won gold. And that was way back when. That was in 1881. There you go, 1881.
Whoa, this smells...
This smells... Wow, it does.
I can smell a bit of...
Actually, I get quite a lot of barnyard there. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. And some really ripe cherries.
I smell a tiny bit of vinegar. I smell...
Yeah, no, I got that as well. There's a slight bitterness to it.
There's a mustiness as well.
But
that
yes,
might be me.
In the late 19th century, the New Zealand government beginning to clock on, they had amazing viticulture. Basically, they paid an Italian called... I can't pronounce this, I'm not going to. But an Italian viticulturist to come over and check Central Otago. And he said that it was one of the best climates and soils he'd ever found for wine.
I've just realised that this smells like something.
What does it smell like?
It smells like the Rotorua volcanic springs in the North Island of
That
New
is
Zealand.
not a compliment.
There's
But there is a
sulphur
sulphury note to it. And I actually think it's like the bottom of the popcorn dregs.
Yep.
That kind of burnt, buttery popcorn.
But I'm very pleased with my New Zealand smell reference there.
You have a fantastic smell reference and descriptors. All right, so we are now drinking, just to let everyone know, the Love Block. I love that block. And this is from Bendigo, is that how I say it?
Bendigo. So Bendigo is a place that I used to play rugby in.
Oh, really? Amazing.
Yeah, we used to get on the coach from Wanaka. Back then, we only really drank Spates beer, though. There wasn't much wine drinking being done. And we'd drive to Bendigo, play the game. And, it's a place in the middle out of nowhere. Not every weekend, but when we went on an away game to Bendigo, we'd go to Bendigo.
Well, this is meant to be an area of Central Otago that's very classic. Like, Bendigo is meant to be like the classic Central Otago Pinot Noir region. Oh, should I tell you the sad but romantic fact?
Tell me.
So the vineyard that is Love Block was grown in, the vineyard is called Someone's Darling. And the reason is that in the 1800s, a young man was buried there in the field, but no one knew who he was. So his gravestone just reads, "Somebody's darling lies buried here."
Oh.
But he's gone into the wine, so you're kind of drinking him. It's the circle of life.
In terms of...
I mean, he's decomposed into that field.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that's quite big into...
Corpses.
What if he wasn't someone's darling? What if he died unloved?
I don't think he did. That's just a too sad a story. He's definitely someone's darling. Somebody's darling. Somebody's darling. Somebody, somewhere. And actually, we love him for going into this wine.
So a lot of biodynamic wines use that process, don't they? Of grinding up animal corpses and stuff and putting them into the...
the whole cow head under the... Yeah, so biodynamic's very interesting. It sort of takes organic principles one step further, where it's not like I won't use pesticides and chemicals. You plant within like the cycles of the moon. It's all very much about the seasons. I actually went to Anchor Hill for a piece I did for City AM to a vineyard called Anchel in Wales, and they explained it far better than I ever could, and it changed my mind on it, because before then I thought it was all a bit hippie, camels' horns planted at the faces of the moon and stuff, but actually it is really working with the land in sync with nature. And personally, I'm not like a total natural wine nut, but I think there is definitely something to be said for making those sorts of practices and being more sustainable in that way.
But some of your cork dork mates are.
Definitely. You got some natural wine lovers. So this wine's also vegan. Not all wines are vegan, remember.
No cow heads in this.
There's no cow heads in this, but lots of wines traditionally use things like egg whites and fish gallbladders to filter and fine wines. But this one's actually vegan, so they don't.
This isn't what I would call an approachable wine. It's like the opposite end of, it's a nice wine. It's nice to drink. But if you think of Sauvignon Blanc as a gateway drug, this wine is
gateway wine.
Gateway wine.
But I think actually this is lovely. I think it's a beautiful.
It's
actually
wine,
growing
tasty,
on me as well as I drink it.
But it's more complex.
It's more mature. It's more mature palate. It's got violets on there. It's got some floral notes. It's got some wood, sort of chipping wood chips, chippy wood chips, and cedar and violet roses, and lots of black cherry and a little bit of barnyard, but that sort of savouriness, which is actually quite
savouriness. That is
quality.
What's unusual. That's why I mean it's not a gateway wine drug.
Yes, you're right. The popular choice is often sweet, but you are seeing a swing in consumer palates. You know what?
As people become more educated in their wine.
Well, no, I think it's just a fashion thing, honestly. Like wines go through fashions. In the 80s, everyone loved an oaky, hard shard, buttery fist of oak in your face is what you wanted. Then it swung back, and the naughty is into, no, you want that really linear, crisp, Chablis sort of style of Chardonnay now, or a Blanc de Blanc, because it's also Chardonnay. Whereas now I think it's actually swinging back. People are wanting that, bread and butter from California, those oaky Chardonnays. So I think these things come in fashions, like fashions. So there is no, when people say good or bad wine, it's hard to actually judge because it's really just what you like.
The savouriness of that wine is really, I really like it.
Me too.
I can't imagine someone who is new to wine liking it in the way that they would like the Villa Maria, for example.
Interesting. Oh shit. Sorry.
It's okay, you missed my podcast.
Just pouring wine.
I realise if we keep going like this, I will be brown boy wasted again.
Brown boy.
Which is...
we'll see how it goes. So basically,
better than party
we're trying definitely better than that. So basically, if you look at these two in colour, they're actually quite similar.
Yeah, so we're now drinking the Tucano Kin, which is from Central Otago, 2017. Yeah. And this is from Bannockburn. Bannockburn was an old gold mining town, just up from...
I just sniffed my mic. Just got my hands mixed up. No, it's fine. No one saw.
Whilst Libby's sniffing her mic, I will sniff the wine.
Oh, wow.
So I can smell, the smell that this reminds me of is graffiti spray cans.
I love your descriptors. I think.
Not that I ever engage in such criminality.
You didn't actually ever sniff an aerosol. I'm getting quite a lot of sort of spices on here.
There are some spices, yeah.
A clove, cinnamon, sort of baking spice thing going on here. Yeah, it's sort of slightly... let it open up a bit, because remember, you've got to sort of... Particularly with red wines, because white wines don't contain tannins, but red wines do. So particularly with red wines, you really want to let them oxygenate. That's why red wines are often served in those larger, fuller glasses. Well, wider glasses, not fuller, that's up to you. But wider glasses is because you really want that oxygen to get in there, because often that helps sort of open up those flavours, aromas and tannins. And the more this opens up, it's like... it's loads of baking spices and cherry and plum.
Has a much fuller flavour than the previous one. The other one had a lot more savouriness, a lot more dryness to it.
Oh, I know, but if you go back to the previous one, you can always get like citrus peel or something in there.
In the first one?
Compare it, because this one's softer. It's much softer, as you say. Wow. It's that full softness, where it's actually got that slight bite of acidity in the savoury.
What is that? I just tasted it. It was like, hold on, I tasted something magic.
I feel like people are just literally hearing a sort of palate wank off. What am I tasting? Slurping. Do you like this, people?
This is really not good for audio, is it?
This is not good for audio. But basically, we're on to the... Probably have to cut out that bit as well or beep it out. But yeah, so this is it Ticano?
Oh, no,
is that what you say?
Wankoff can stay,
Oh,
definitely.
okay, can stay. Great. Organic practices. It's quite a vibrant wine, but what vintage is this that we're actually drinking?
2017.
Okay, so that was quite a cold and I think windy year. Don't quote me on that.
Why does it matter if it's windy?
Well, it matters if windy because you can damage vines. It can reduce. It can basically if it blows the sea breeze in, it will make it colder. You often need if you've got like the Mistral wind is quite a famous wind. There are different winds.
So
cool grapes down. So if you've got mountains and hillsides, they shelter the grapes. So A, it stops them from getting chilly, and B, very strong winds, just like hail and storms and stuff, can destroy vines.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, so it is quite savoury again though. And I think that's something that the Otago Pinot Noirs tend to have. Like for me, a Pinot Noir grape from Europe tends to taste a lot like roses dried in a wooden cedar box. And that's my go-to when I'm doing a blind tasting. I'm like, this smells like roses dried in a
I don't spend a lot of time drying roses in wooden cedar boxes.
And do you not sniff them afterwards?
No.
You're not eating them, just sniff them. Try it sometime. It's wild on a Friday night.
Yeah.
When you're done with the lunging, try doing that. So basically, that's my go-to. But this is a very different flavour profile. You've still got floral notes there, definitely. You don't get the violet, the rose.
Going back to the first one, there's a taste in there that I really want to work out what it is.
All right, well, while you're working out, I'm going to pour the seventh, listeners, and final bottle. Are you going back? He's going back. He's going back and pouring the previous one because he's finished the glass. The cracking is just me opening the bottle. It's a live experience for you all. So this one, it's again a Pinot Noir, but it's actually from North Canterbury. Now, what say you? I know North Canterbury. I had not really known of. It's not a very well-known. Look at that colour though. Look how lovely it is. So for the people who are listening can't see, it's really, really light. A really, really light red. So basically, Canterbury. Sorry.
What kind of wine is claret? When people say
That's a Bordeaux.
what grape is that?
Oh, I should know this right. Oh yeah, so a Bordeaux is like a Cab Sav and a Merlot blend.
Okay.
With a little bit of Cab Franc. But left bank, right bank. It's like, I should know this. I do know this. Yeah.
But people talk about like the colour claret.
So basically,
the
dark, British called it claret. It's just a nickname we gave it. The posh upper classes gave it. It's not what it's called in France.
This is a colour that I would describe as burgundy.
Would you? I think it's much lighter than that. But okay.
Yeah, but then I don't know what burgundy wine looks like. But
Well,
it's the same
this
grape,
is very,
isn't it?
very, very. It is, but this is very. This particular one is very, very light. Now, North Canterbury is known for its plains, but actually this comes from a tiny, tiny little sub-district called Waipara, which is only about an hour from Christchurch. Waipara, is that how I say it?
Yeah, so that's heading up towards Mount Hutt, isn't it?
But it's quite exciting. I haven't tried this yet. I haven't even sniffed it yet, but I'm really excited about it because it's a really quite a challenging area to grow wine from. They have some issues. It's quite a warm climate, but they've got hills for protection. They've got lots of things going on there. But it's quite an exciting, lesser known region. I think it's on the coastline against the Alps. Anyway, it's dry. It's cool climate. They've got sunshine and long growing season, and there's generally meant to be quite a perfumed to wines grown here, but they think it's going to be the next big area, basically. That's
really?
the tip off. Like
so
Central Otago, we all know, but North Canterbury is going to be apparently the new region, and they are struggling. Well, not struggling, but it is a challenging area. But they're making some great wines.
Challenging areas can make better grapes. Is that right?
Yeah, you want to treat your vines badly. They are naughty vines, and they need to be treated accordingly. But no,
this is exactly why you got into.
Wine, because I'm basically dominatrix. Is that what you're saying? I like to whip my wines and vines. So basically, if you want to starve a vine, really, it sounds really, but rocky soils and sort of limited water is good, because if it has too much, a vine will put it into leaves and it will put it into, basically growing. But what you want is all its energy to go into grapes, because that's its main drive to procreate.
That makes sense why Otago is a good place for growing these wines, because it's quite poor soil. It's not a place where you can grow much else.
Yeah.
And so everything goes into the grape. Is that right?
Yeah, basically you starve your vine essentially, but you don't starve it. It's not actual vine cruelty, but it makes sure that everything goes into the grapes and gives it more flavor, and that's really what you're after. So this is a biodiverse and organic. They're organically certified. The Black Estate is organically certified wine, and I'm pretty excited to try this because it's an area that I've never tried before. So
I can't.
I mean, I love the smell on it.
I can't smell hardly any fruit on the nose.
No, it's really got that.
It's very much those same sulfury rotary type smells.
And can you see there's
first one?
Can you see there's a slight haze to it?
Yeah.
If you held it that's because they haven't fined or filtered it, so you can have a little bit of sediment. So when you have a wine that's not fined or filtered, that's absolutely fine to have sediment in. You just need to rest it. If you don't like some sediment in you, rest it standing up before you open it. You also get people with obviously their aged ports and stuff pouring it through filters and things like that. But this is this hasn't been fined or filtered, so it's got a slight haze, and that's absolutely all right.
Wow, I've just drunk some.
How is it? Is it exciting?
It's great. I really like it, and there's a flavour in there that Libby likes it.
Oh yeah, I do. So this actually says in the bottle, "That's made traditionally with hand and heart." That's a sweet thing to put on the label. This bottle contains what happened in 2018, and what they mean by that is obviously because they haven't fined it, they haven't filtered it. It's even got the soil type on here. You don't normally get the soil type on a bottle on a label of a bottle. They haven't fined it, they haven't filtered it. They've used vineyard-derived yeast, so they haven't added commercial yeast. They've just used the yeast that are on the grape naturally. This is basically the wine that was created, that year, that way.
So when they do that fermentation process, they often add yeast, but they didn't do that on this one.
No, you can either use, more natural wines will use the yeast that naturally occurs on the outside of the grape skins, and whereas you can add commercial yeast, and actually different yeast use does actually create different flavors. There's nothing wrong with adding yeast, commercial yeast, anything like that. Nothing wrong with it at all with it. But some people choose not to give a more, as they see it, true expression of what's actually going on in the vineyard. The problem is with that, of course, that if you're giving a true expression of what's going on in the vineyard, you might make shite wine, because the wine could.
What does shanked mean?
Shite.
Oh, shite. I think it means
shanked means to be, I think, stabbed,
yeah,
right?
It does, yeah. I was like,
yeah, you don't want
very, very
that's
aggressive
also terrible.
way to describe the wine.
But you might shank that person who gave you some shite wine. But this wine is absolutely gorgeous.
So I can taste a little bit of cherry at the end, and also a bit of port I can taste. I don't think they've added port into it, but that was a...
They probably haven't. But it is that kind of, that depth of flavour there. There's a real intensity and richness. There is a lightness of perfume. This is incredibly interesting. This is I got too excited. I had to just readjust my mic because I was thinking about the wine. But it's incredibly complex. There's real earthiness to it.
Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah.
I think it's...
But
all of these Pinot Noirs, I think, are pretty special.
But I think all of the wines we've actually tried are pretty special. And they all are doing a very different thing. They're all appealing to a very different market and a very different audience. Whether you're into your sustainability and you want Yalens, whether you want your easy drinking fruitiness and you're going for Villa Maria, whether you want something sort of complex and a bit more aged, or naturally fine and fizzled like the Black Estate. I mean, all of these wines are doing... That Babbage was fantastic. I mean, all of them have been completely different.
Yeah, and to consider that we've had 7 different wines from 2 different grapes, how different each of these wines has been just brilliant.
Go back to that first one after trying the last one. Sorry, this is not fun for you listeners. However, I am going to tell you something pretty fascinating right now that is not out in the world yet.
Tell me your great fact, please.
Okay, here's a great fact for you. So basically, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is incredibly popular the world round, and lots of, particularly actually over here in the UK, unfortunately, the last couple of harvests, particularly last year, were quite poor, as in the wines might be fantastic, but they haven't been able to make as much, and the reserves are down. So normally they'd have reserves if they didn't manage to harvest that much wine, but because of the increase in demand, because New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is so popular, they don't have enough stock. And actually, no one knows this yet. It has not been announced in any way, shape or form. It probably won't be announced in any way, shape or form. But basically, places that are trying to buy New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc for next year and then the year after that are failing. So if you do like New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, now is the time to stock up. Buy some, because you'll probably only notice that over the next year or two, you won't find it in the supermarkets as much. And if you do, there's going to be a premium. The price is going to go up. So basically, it's so popular, but it's not on tap. Wine is not a product on tap. Wine is a product of the year and the timing. So it is also fragile. You won't just be able to click your fingers and get it. So if you want some New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, buy it now.
Thank you for that top tip.
Top tip. It's actually not. It's really a thing, and the industry's talking about it, but no one's saying anything about it. So this is breaking news.
Well, one of the things I've loved about spending time with you as you've gone through this journey to become a
is
wine
your naked
consultant.
lunging.
And you love the naked lunging. I love the wine consultancy.
I did.
Is learning more about wine and its many facets through you and your knowledge. It's been great, and to be able to go and do a wine tasting with you for a country, from wines from a country that I love so much, and which really introduced me to wine, particularly the Otago Pinot Noirs. You know, I was saying to you before we started, for years, I've been trying to buy Otago Pinot Noirs in the UK, and I've often just come across ones that haven't really excited me or that I've not loved so much. These ones have been absolutely brilliant, and the Sauvignon Blancs, it's blown my mind how different they are to what I conceive of a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. It hasn't just been the big gooseberry smash in the face.
Yeah.
There's been some really interesting complex ones, and talking about the culture, how New Zealand has, like, it's 40, 50 years of real wine industry.
Yeah.
Constant innovation, developing its own styles, its own flavours, its own attitudes towards wine production, and seeing it in these products has been great. And knowing the landscape as I do, and I was gutted. I was there in 2020, and I was just about to go down to the South Island, and I was pulled off the river by the government to send me back home early before the country got locked down. The tourist board, who I was out there with,
drinking the wine, living the life.
I did bring back plenty of wine from the airport.
Thank goodness for that. But I do think if you love a country, it's important to drink the wine of it. If you don't love a country, it's important to get to know the wine of it. And if you can't travel by plane, travel by palate. Take this journey. It's so different every bottle you try.
Well, Libby, this has been a fantastic experience. I would like to do this with you more.
Drunk again. We've done so much getting drunk together, Ash.
But pretending that it's work.
Right. Oh, do it work? Yeah, I agree. Any other countries that would like to send us wine?
Yeah, I think, and maybe we can try and get Pip down to get drunk with us. Although she does have, Willow and Bowen can hang out together.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
So the kids can look after each other whilst we just drink the wine.
I think that sounds really good.
Libby, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's been a real joy to drink this New Zealand wine with you, and I think we just got to finish off the bottles now, really.
Yeah. Should we chug?
Chug.
Chug, chug, chug.
Cheers.
Right, cheers. Thank you so much for having me, Ash. Cheers, Pips.